Chapter 8 from our book is called The White Mare. From the tailboard of our ox cart, with Bader snuggled beside me, I watched Karakoram grow smaller. Winter was whispering its coming on the back of a raw wind that bit at my cheeks and nose. Below my dangling feet, the dried grasses shivered in the pale light of a hazy sun. The festival was over. All across the steppes, gear-laden ox carts were drifting like giant white butterflies away from the walled city. Each carried with it a sampling of the great city's nectar. Champion archers clutched new bows. A wrestler beamed beneath the hard-won title of Arslan, lion, which is interesting because in Turkish, lion is said aslan, and aslan, of course, is from the Chronicles of Narnia. So this one says Arslan, or lion. I had watched with envy as a young girl upon her prancing bay horse was showered with silk scarves, surrounded by an approving crowd. She had won this year's long race, even beating the older boys. I had to swallow hard and force my heart to wish her well, but how I longed to place my feet in those stirrups. Dwarfed by the cart's towering load, I sat with my back pressing into it, just listening to the farewell shouts, the oiled wheels creaking, the ox grunting, and thinking about prizes. My father was carrying home his prize. Hands upon the reins, he talked and laughed with his new wife, while her two sons sat wordless behind them. My father had been unable to award me. While a brief sadness darkened his face in the telling, my father had been unable to award me. I don't know what that means. While a brief sadness darkened his face in the telling, I had quietly sighed with relief. And for my own prize, I stared at the braided brown rope clutched to my fist. My eyes followed its looping arc, swaying with the rhythm of the wagon, down, then back up and around the bobbing head of the white mare. So she took the horse that asked, that she felt wanted help. Yes, limping behind us was my choice, my champion, the white mare. But I had to choose her, hadn't I? She had spoken to me, although I could hardly explain this to my father. "Oh, Una," he had said sadly, shaking his head as we stood beside the white mare and her owner, "are you sure this is the horse you want?" I had nodded, though hesitantly enough to show my own uncertainty. My father was looking into the mare's mouth. "How many winters?" he asked his owner. Her owner. "Only 7, the man answered. "Humph," my father grunted. "Closer to 12 if she's seen one, so she's a little bit of an older horse." He was walking around her then, running his hands along the white legs already fuzzy with a winter coat. When he saw the blood-stained hind leg, he bent for a closer look. "Trot her out," he ordered abruptly. The owner tugged on the halter until the mare reluctantly stumbled into a painfully unbalanced trot. I cringed as my father's scowl fell upon me. "Why do you choose a crippled animal, O Una? You know better. Who would pay silver for such?" But the white mare was being led back to me, her dark eyes looking into mine. My father was right. Who would pay dear silver for a cripple? "No one," I answered quietly, "because no one would pay silver for me." Looking into my father's face, I saw that he flushed. "But this is the horse that I choose," she said. Grumbling, she said. She should have said, I said. I screwed that up. Sorry. She says that to her father. "But this is the horse that I choose." I added never mind. I got all discombobulated there. Grumbling and still shaking his head, my father quickly counted out silver coins, and the man handed me the mare's lead rope. We walked back to our gear in silence. Every day since then, I had searched the black eyes of the mare, and waited for her to speak again, but there was only silence, and it had been 5 days now. At that moment, the mare stumbled, nearly jerking the rope from my hands before she regained her balance. Tears blurred my eyes as I thought how I had wasted my chance for a champion on an old crippled horse that could barely plod the pace of an ox. She wasn't even suited for breeding, I now knew, for after the silver had changed hands, her seller admitted he had no foals from her. The pale sun crept across the arching sky, then slowly began sinking toward earth. Still I stared into the black eyes of the white mare. She was staring back at me now, steadily, but no words filled my head. All I heard was a small explosion of laughter from the front of the cart, then the same rhythmic creaking of heavy wheels and straining harness. The hard beating of the grouse's wings reached my ear as a pair was flushed from beneath the cart's path. There were grouses under the path that the cart was going, and as it went over them, the grouses kind of flew up. Then I heard the soft cry of cranes somewhere in the distance. Between my own heartbeats, which suddenly pounded in my ears, I thought I even heard the water rippling away from one crane's plunge after a fish. And then, as I held my breath near to bursting in amazement, and the even softer scurry of tiny mouse feet through the grasses tickled my ears. The animals of the steppes, even though hidden from my eyes, were suddenly made known to me by their loud bustling. The grasslands were practically roaring with hooves tromping, wings flapping, claws digging, bills snapping. At last, blue-faced I'm sure, I let my breath out in a rush and sucked in lungfuls of fresh air. Blood raced through my veins. My shoulders shook. Already panicky, I startled when the corner of my eye caught the flashing white tail of a bounding rabbit. Glancing to the right, I instantly picked out the still squat of a well-camouflaged suslik. All right, and that's an italicized word, so I'm going to go to the back. And it is a small burrowing rodent similar to a ground squirrel. To my surprise and fear, I saw crouching directly behind the little squirrel, not more than a good leap from our ox cart, a yellow-eyed, grinning fox. My eyes darted to the left. Deep within the grasses, clinging to a swaying stem, perched a leathery grasshopper. A fat beetle beneath it crawled through the shadows, striping the hard dirt. Had these creatures always been so close? Why had I never spotted them before? I flinched even before I saw them. A dozen saiga antelope, S-A-I-G-A, so let me see what that is. A bulbous-nosed antelope. So it's a certain type of nose on the, I think bulbous is big. I don't know what bulbous means, actually. I'm going to look up bulbous for you. I'm not sure what bulbous means, so I will find that out. The white mare snorted, dancing sideways to watch me. My heart doubled its beat. I tensed, fingernails cut into my palms. Somehow I wanted to leap from the cart and race with them. What was happening to me? Why did the world suddenly seem so loud and so wild? I squeezed my eyes shut and focused on calming my breathing. Slowly, I sucked in the cool air, pushed it evenly out over my pursed lips. Again, I breathed in, rhythmically, slowly, in and out, steady, easy. The faint, moldy odor of cheese reached my nostrils. It must have been coming from the felt-wrapped package I had placed in the cart's front seat. I thought I could even make out the sweet smell of the millet flour in a bag slumped beside it. But how could that be? Curious, I sucked in the deepest breath I could hold. This time, countless smells swept through me. Even, I was certain, the salty sweat beading on the wide pink nostrils of our ox. This is a beautiful book to read, but it's hard to say these words out loud. Somewhere below us, I could sniff the days-old droppings of an animal I couldn't name. Eyes still closed, I inhaled the peppery fragrance of wildflowers mixed with the light scent of moisture-filled grasses. That made my tongue grow wet. I inhaled a coolness. Frowning, I breathed in again. Yes, I could taste it. Turning my head west, toward a fading sun shedding its warm glow upon my eyelids, I opened my eyes. The white mare was already looking at the same dusty shallow my gaze had fixed upon. Water. Somehow I just knew it was there. I had already smelled it and tasted it. At least I thought I had. I called to my father, hollering the words over the swaying bulk of our cart. I heard him call to the others. The oxen slowed, then swung toward the sinking sun. How had I known? The white mare was calmer now, bobbing her head with each step, and again she was looking at me. I studied the black eyes, encircled in white lashes, and it occurred to me that they were twinkling. The mare, it seemed, was enjoying a private joke. She was laughing at me. There were no words in my head, just sounds, and sights I had never seen, and tastes and smells. So something, she's kind of like got some superpowers? I don't know. Maybe she has some superpowers. I'd like you to answer a question from me in the comments. What happens to Oyuna as she leads her new lame mare home? Okay, so what was I just describing there? What happens to her at the end of chapter 8?